So algebra, we're going to talk about adding and subtracting rational expressions. Basically adding and subtracting fractions. So which is why our first two examples are basic fractions. To remind you, because some of you might have forgotten how to add and subtract fractions if you didn't have a calculator. So if I have 3/7 plus 2/7, I can just add those right away because they have a common denominator. My denominator is 7 in both, so I can just say 3 plus 2 is 5 and keep my denominator the same. So 3/7 plus 2/7 is 5/7. What about the next one though? I have 1/4 plus 7/10. I can't add those together till I have a common denominator. So I'm going to look at 4 and 10 and try to figure out what is my least common denominator. What's the smallest number that 4 and 10 goes into? It's 20. So I'm going to need each of these to have a denominator of 20. So to make 1/4 have a denominator of 20, I'm multiplying by 5. And I'm multiplying by 5 over 5. Because I can't just magically multiply just the denominator by 5, because that would change the value of 1/4. It would become 1/20th, and that's not the same thing. But if I multiply the top and bottom by 5, all of a sudden now it becomes 5/20ths, which is the same thing as 1/4. They're equivalent fractions. So this one I'm going to multiply by 2 over 2. I do that, and I get 14 over 20. Now I can add these up and I get 19/20ths. So that's the basic premise of adding and subtracting fractions. I wanted you to remind you of that because you'll need those skills as we move forward. So let's look at our next problem. We have 2 over x plus 3 plus 5 over x plus 3. So these have common denominators. Since they have common denominators, I can just add them. 2 plus 5 is 7, and my denominator is x plus 3. That can't be simplified at all. I'm done. Let's look at the next one. 3y over y plus 5 minus y over y plus 5. Again, a common denominator, so we can just subtract in this case. 3y minus y is 2y, and that is over y plus 5. That can't be simplified at all. I'm done. So let's look at our last one here. 3n plus 4 over 2n squared plus 5n minus 3 minus 2n plus 1 over 2n squared plus 5n minus 3. So we can see our denominators are the same, so we can subtract. Now, when we subtract, I'm going to do 3n minus 2n, which is just 1n, or n. And then I'm going to do 4 minus 1, which is positive 3. So I'm going to put plus 3. So that'll be the numerator at the top of the fraction. My denominator is going to stay the same. It's 2n squared plus 5n minus 3. Now, one thing we need to do, we need to make sure we can't simplify. So I need to factor the bottom to make sure I don't get an n plus 3. So on the bottom, if I factor that, it's going to be 2n and n. So a negative 3 is going to be, let's see, the only way to get that is 3 times 1. One of them is going to be positive, one of them is going to be negative. I think that's going to be plus 3. That's going to be minus 1. If I double check this, my outer would be positive 6n. My inner would be negative 1n. 6 plus negative 1 is positive 5, so we're good. And now you can see I've got an n plus 3 and an n plus 3. So my final answer is 1 over 2n minus 1. Whenever you have everything cancel out on top like that, you just put a 1 as the numerator. Everything's gone. There's going to be a 1 there. So our answer is 1 over 2n minus 1. All right, so that's our first set of examples. In these, we had common denominators, so I bet we see uncommon denominators.